I want to discuss a team that I've already got some numbers on in the futures market, and that would be the Seattle Seahawks. So you could have gotten, once the numbers came out, about over almost 5-1 to win the division, which is
it's a good number.
Plus 425 is what I ended up landing on. Now, those numbers are long gone. So now you look at them, and there's a bunch of different ways. To miss the playoffs for this team is even money, which is interesting to me because I look at the conference as a whole, and I go, well, how do they miss the playoffs? Who's better than we expect? And how do the Seahawks come back to the pack? Remember, their defense was kind of the issue last year.
Right.
And yet, they had a lead at the end of the third quarter in San Francisco in the wild card game. Then the fourth quarter, everything went haywire, and San Francisco even ended up covering the number that day. What is the more likely outcome? Is this team really a challenger to San Francisco to win the division, or could they maybe come back to the pack a little bit? Because last year, this time when we're talking, we thought they might be one of the worst teams in the entire league, and they were anything but.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in the Seattle Seahawks, so probably a biased opinion coming in here on the Hawks. But this is a team that went 9-8 last year, Dave. They get into the postseason. But remember, this is a team that beat the Rams and the Cardinals 4 times in those matchups. The 44% of your wins came against 2 teams that were completely in disarray. So, again, like I said, I don't understand the affinity for this team. I think their receiving core is going to be one of the top receiving cores in the NFL when you look at it. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then, of course, the rookie Jaxon Smith-Njigba in the slot, who I think is going to be really tough to stop. Their defense is going to be improved, but in terms of winning this division, I just don't see it. San Francisco, to me, is still, from an offensive standpoint and defensive standpoint, one of the top and most talented teams in the NFL, despite the question marks at quarterback. You take away that, the other 21 players, they've got the best roster in football, and it's not even close.
I'm with you on that. Look at again, this is a 9-win team a year ago. I don't think anybody saw 9 wins coming this time last year. Russell Wilson, of course, just exited stage left. You didn't even know who the quarterback was going to be, whether it was going to be Geno Smith or Drew Lock. That was a conversation this time last year. Then Geno who saw that year coming from Geno, literally off the scrap heap of the NFL. Now he gets paid, right? Is there any concern that Geno reverts back to Jets Geno, or can we now confidently say, no, all that time of suffering has done him well, and now this, last year, is the truer sense of who Geno Smith actually is?
Yeah, to your point, his career quarterback rating elevated incredibly when he got to Seattle. 94.2, but in a very small sample size, just in 5 pass attempts in 2020, and then in 21, 103 rating, and then last year, 30 touchdowns, 11 INTs, 100.9. So did a tremendous job with 4,200 yards passing. Look, with the receiving core he has, I think it'll be tough to regress. He is in a great position. I don't know, Dave, how many receiving cores you would take over this one. I mean, this thing is elite.
It really does. And again, we know, I think the angst that people have when they look at Pete Carroll with his teams, they go, well, Pete's going to run the ball.
Well, I love their running back room.
Right? Like their offense on paper, if the offensive line holds up, they should be able to score some points. So there's a lot of props out there associated with Geno. And certainly when you look at passing yards for a guy like Geno Smith this year, 3,900 in the hook. That over, minus $1.05. The under, minus 115. Passing touchdowns, 26.5. Basically even juice, minus $1.10 either way. Interceptions, 11.5. If you want to play the over, this is interesting. Plus $1.05 for over 11.5 picks. Now, you just mentioned it. That receiving core is really good, which means to me, you would think they'd have a lot of volume and opportunity for picks because Geno's going to want to get it to that talented wide receiving core.
No question about it. But you know what? I'm not concerned about him from a pick standpoint because I think he's not a guy that takes risky throws. He's pretty conservative in terms of his approach, so I think that's why you could see that number being a little bit lower. In terms of where he's at. I mentioned last year 30-11, sitting at 11.5 for the season in terms of INTs over. But I don't know. I just like with Metcalf, who's a tremendous talent. Tyler Lockett, very underappreciated and underrated. I don't know what it is up in Seattle. Dougie Baldwin was also underrated. I'm telling you, Dave, to me, the offensive rookie of the year is going to be one of 2 players. Jaxon Smith-Njigba of Seattle or Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers.
Wow. You like Jaxon Smith that much?
I don't think there's going to be anybody that can cover him. He is such a great slot receiver and what he can do coming off the line. I read one scout said, he said, there's nobody that has the ability to get open with their quickness and their route running as well as he does in terms of what he's going to be doing.
Well, I want to look at the number on Jaxon Smith-Njigba to be the Rookie of the Year because he's going to have that opportunity, right? So there's no question about it when you look in that futures market here for Rookie of the Year. And I think you're right on that he right now, he's got a really good chance to do just that. I guess the question is that means we believe in Geno Smith. We believe that this is the new Geno. 11 picks from a year ago, he's not going to revert.
Objection, counselor.
Bring it.
Because here's the thing. When you're throwing in the slot, you're throwing 6, 7, 8, 9-yard dump-off plays. I mean, this is a guy that can do things, run after the catch. I know we've got some statistics. I don't know if we have them in front of us or not. But in terms of Jaxon Smith-Njigba catches, and if you're like me and if you think he's got a shot at Offensive Rookie of the Year, it's a pretty good bet in terms of going over on his total.
And 15-1 to win the Offensive Roy. Okay? So if you tell me –
for DK US, Jaxon Smith-Njigba for receptions sitting at 57.5.
Okay. And again, 15-1 to win the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So there's your catch total. If he's, in your estimation, Amal, a guy that's really going to be a matchup nightmare because of the other guys, could he evolve into their number one by the end of the year? I mean, look, that's pretty heady when you look at DK Metcalf and you look at Lockett and you look at the guys that they already have that are already ahead of him. But it feels like he's going to get the target shares to Wyatt's point of that total maybe hitting the over and for Rookie of the Year at 15-1 because you think the target share will be there.
I absolutely do. When you think about guys in that particular position where he's going to be, he's going to have an opportunity. You're talking about what, 3.5 catches per game? I think his total yardage is about 700. To me, he's in a great position.
Very quickly before we end this segment, Pete Carroll's 71 years young, 25-1 to win Coach of the Year. Is Pete Carroll could he possibly, if they won this division? That's the context it would have to take in order for him to be in this conversation.
It would, but I think based on the success last year, it becomes harder for him. To me, I'm not a big fan of this betting market, the Coach of the Year odds. It's such a crapshoot. Here's what I don't get. Dan Campbell's plus 850. That team is expected to have a good year and potentially win the division. I do like Sean Payton at 9-1, even though it's a little bit short, if you believe Denver's going to be good. I just don't think the Broncos are going to be particularly good. If Atlanta's good with Arthur Smith, there's another one. I'm looking for a team that's a non-playoff qualifier that's got an opportunity to potentially make the postseason.
I'm telling you, man, Pete Carroll should have won it last year when the expectations were 0 and he made them all the way into a 9-win team that got to the postseason, 25-1 to get that award this year.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.